Back this videotape for you because what we intend to show you, and we have on videotape, is the collapse that World Trade Center building number 7, which housed Solomon Brothers and Smith Barney. I look away because our friend here, who's an eyewitness and who worked in the building. And by the way, let's get a picture. Another, he wouldn't call himself a hero. Here's a man in our studio who's given us some eyewitness reports here today, who calmly got together, led people out of the building. It was his responsibility. He took it upon himself to get people out and then get himself out. Was there actual panic as you did then?
There was panic among the staff, yes. But the important thing, everybody got out on time before.
Well, you won't say it, but I will. You got everybody out.
Yeah.
David Martin is outside the Pentagon. David.
Dan, the U.S. is trying to do two very different things here simultaneously. One is to hunker down and button up and protect against the possibility of still another attack, and that's why the Pentagon has put all of its bases on the highest state of alert, and the State Department has put all American embassies around the world on the highest state of alert. But at the same time, the U.S. wants to create an impression, at least, of a quick return to normalcy, and that is one of the reasons why the president is coming back to Washington tonight. You know, he spent the day moving about from military base to military base as much as he would in the event of a nuclear war. That now is ended, and they are bringing the president back to Washington to try and create this impression of a return to normalcy. But obviously, as you can see behind me, we are a long, long way from normal. One of the obvious questions here is, who did this? And the early suspicions are focused on Osama bin Laden, the terrorist who seems to have made it his life's calling to attack Americans around the world. And in this case, I think, in contrast to previous cases, there is very little doubt that there will be some form of military retaliation. What form it will take and when it might happen, I think it's much too early to tell, but I think it is all but inevitable.
David Martin, 2 questions. The last quote we had from any official at the Pentagon was that 100 people were believed killed or injured. Any later information about that?
The only number I've heard, Dan, which is 20 dead, but no one expected it to end there. The services that had offices in that part of the building have asked all of the people assigned there to call in so they know who made it out. And there are still, among all the services, hundreds of unaccounted for, but you don't know if that's because they didn't make it out or simply because they haven't called in. But if you just take a fully loaded commercial airliner, you know that the death toll is going to go much higher than 20, no matter who was caught in the building.
Well, that's a good point. And the belief is that American Flight 77, headed from Dulles Airport near Washington to Los Angeles, a Boeing 757, this is the plane that's believed to have crashed into the Pentagon, had 58 passengers and 6 crew. And while one might hope and pray that somebody among those 58 passengers, 6 crew survived, it seems highly unlikely. So there, right there, you would have, in the 60s, the number of people dead, killed at the Pentagon. And the wife of U.S. Solicitor General Theodore Olson was aboard the jetliner that crashed into the Pentagon. She called him as the plane was being hijacked. She twice called her husband and described some details of the hijacking, including, now this is Barbara Olson, an attorney, very intelligent woman, the wife of the U.S. Solicitor General, the new one, Theodore Olson. She said that the attackers were using knife-like instruments. When she called her husband, she said the attackers, this is on the plane, that would have been the American Airlines Flight 77. She said that the attackers were using knife-like instruments. Now, the officials who quoted this conversation to the woman's husband declined to give any further details of the conversation. In a brief telephone interview from his home, Theodore Olson said his wife was on the plane and that crashed in the Pentagon And he said, I wish it wasn't so, but it is. Olson argues President Bush's cases before the Supreme Court. We're going to go back to David Martin at the Pentagon. David, I understand you have some additional information or insight, and then I have an additional question for you, please.
You were talking about the plane that crashed into the Pentagon. Someone made the point to me that all of these planes were cross-country flights that had just taken off, meaning they were all carrying full loads of fuel, which would obviously increase the destruction that they cause when they crash into a building. Whether that was part of the plan or whether it just worked out that way, we of course don't know, but it would certainly indicate, at least initially, that considerable thought and planning went into this attack.
Indeed, David, including that they hit the World Trade Center at the height of morning rush hour, right at 9 o'clock. First one building, then the other, right at the very height of rush hour here in New York City. David, stand by, because I have some questions about possible U.S. responses. You say, you know, the U.S. will respond. The how and why of that I'd like to discuss with you. But first, we want to go through a sequence of pictures of what happened here in New York today at the World Trade Center, including two pieces of videotape that CBS News obtained exclusively, and we've shown only in the last half hour or so. So the sequence of events that will not necessarily be in order, but this to review for you and give you the latest picture information we have is the way it was this morning between 9 and 11 a.m. New York time, Eastern time. One plane has hit the upper tier, but watch the left-hand corner of your screen. The second World Trade Tower has not yet been hit. It's about 9 a.m. Here comes the plane, very high speed, cuts almost through the building. Great balls of fire, tremendous bellows of smoke. The voices you hear in the background, the people in the home or the place where these pictures were taken. So the second building was hit. Now, you note the plane went in at about, that aircraft hit that tower at floor about 71. The first building was hit, 90 or above, say. So both buildings are now smoke and flame. Now, different view. Both buildings are aflame. And then the building that was hit second comes tumbling down. That was the one where the airplane came in particularly quickly and hit the building at about floor 71. The Chrysler building in the background. Now the second tower, which was actually hit first by American Flight 11, begins to crumble. Disappeared. And since then, the most recent collapse, which happened just a short while ago, Building 7, a 47-story building as part of the World Trade Center complex, collapsed. That building had been, we were told, completely evacuated. But the fate of people on the ground, including rescue workers, as it came tumbling down, we simply don't know. But it had been threatening to collapse, had been on the verge of collapse for a long while, so perhaps most of the area had been evacuated. But who could have anticipated this kind of incredibly dense and fast-moving smoke, which covers many blocks in New York? And like some white monster, came quickly down side streets and major thoroughfares. Now stay with me here, stay with us here. CBS, this is another, see the plane? This is another view, more videotape. This plane.
Against a backdrop of gentle blue sky, a terrorist arrow pierces the heart of a city and a nation.
Oh. Those two sequences we should see again.
One more horrifying than the next.
And we will show you.
This was a United Airlines flight 175.
Some of this video has just now become available. And in the aftermath, well, if you've been with us, you know what happens. We're going to try to re-rack. That's the opposite side of the second tower hit. You know, we had different views during the day, but this was photographed from that side of the building. Now we're going to recue that sequence of videotape. This includes new videotape material obtained by CBS News over the last hour and a half. We have shown some of it. Now, this is the latest new video we have. You see the plane coming in high speed, aiming for the mid-level, and hits it.
Pierces the heart of a city and a nation.
That was the second flight, United Flight 175, and this is a reverse side of the building. See, the plane actually pierced the building.
There were several angles.
Virtually came out the other side. Yet another view, the plane hitting.
It's
almost like